Welcome to the Color of Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Today, Tyler and I will be talking about how his chronic illness has impacted his physical and mental health, what are his dreams and aspirations as a jazz guitarist, and what has his experience been like as a biracial male, given everything that's going on in today's country. He also drops nuggets on positivity and ways to handle bullying and finding your why and who you are. I wanted to welcome Tyler Ransom on today's show. He is 20 years old. I think he is the youngest guest that we've had on our show. He's an American singer-songwriter, jazz guitarist, published author, and the focus of a documentary on demand titled In the Shed. I checked it out. It's amazing. He's presently attending the New School of Performing Arts in New York City, studying jazz guitar with music available on all streaming platforms. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Hey Stephanie, what's up? What's up? How are you?
Oh, the pandemic, all these things going on, but you are doing amazing things. Again, like I said, I'm not one to judge anyone by their age because I'm pretty young being a doctor for this long. You're a musician, martial artist, high achieving student, author, the list goes on and on. Is there anything that Tyler Ransom does not do?
I can't juggle, if that helps. It's very crazy to me a lot of the times, when I talk to friends and we start listing our accomplishments, just like realizing the impact that I've made already. I'm very grateful to have all those things under my name. It's incredible. Just hearing that was like crazy.
Your voice is so calming as well. So I mean, if you and your dad kind of hook you up with doing some mindful meditation, like on Calm or anything, I think that's like the next, credit that you need to get. So let's jump right in. Tell us more about the chronic illness that you faced throughout your life and how that's really impacted you physically and in your mental health.
Yeah, of course. So since I was about 10 months, I've had a kidney illness called nephrotic syndrome. And basically, to summarize it really shortly, my kidneys filtering system shuts on and off automatically. I pee out the good stuff and the bad stuff stays in my body.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if too much bad stuff stays in my body, I get something called a relapse. And that's when I weigh 15 to 30 pounds more of just excess fluid. My eyes get swollen shut. I can't see, my legs get swollen. I can't wear pants. But it's something that doesn't have a cure. I continue to deal with it as I get older. And it's definitely something that took a toll on me mentally growing up, being a young kid and learning. Actually, just being a young kid in elementary school and having to tell my friends, I can't go to school next week. I'm going to be in the hospital. My kidneys are acting up. But yeah, mentally and physically, it was really difficult growing up. But it's, I've learned to use it as a tool now. So I'm really grateful for that.
So that must have been hard though, telling your friends. I mean, it sounds like you're pretty open to it in terms of disclosing that to your friends. But was there ever a point where you're like, I'm a little bit different? And if there was any kind of self-doubts because of that?
Oh, definitely. Like in the very beginning of it, because I don't know if you know, Stephanie, but kids can be like super mean.
Oh, I would say they have sometimes assholish behavior. That would be a clinical term. Okay.
Clinical term, but definitely in the early stages of elementary school, I'd come to school, my eyes swollen, and kids would be like, "Oh my gosh, it's Megamind," or they'd be like, "How come you look funny?" And there were definitely cases in the beginning where I was like, "Okay, I don't really want to deal with this. This is just like I'm like a handicapped kid now. Like none of this is like it's helping me out." I didn't really see myself in a positive light, and I was fortunate to have a passion for mixed martial arts, and I was able to sort of combine the two, and that's sort of what got me out of my rut as a young child.
Yeah. I mean, the technical term, I guess, rolled with Ronda Rousey. You've had tons of mentors. What does Jiu-Jitsu mean to you and what has it taught you about life?
Yeah, The clinic. Wait, what do you say? The correct term is rolling. I like
Your
that.
technical term, I don't know. I watched the documentary, the whole thing. So
That was right. Rolling is definitely the right term. So 10 points for you. It's it was having jujitsu. It was a huge gift for me. I wasn't really able to fit in with the kids at school. I didn't know how to voice what I was going through. And then when I would go to the jujitsu mat or I'd roll with, these big name fighters, they didn't really view me as the sick kid. I was part of their class. All that was how I was on the mat. And for the first time, since I could remember being the first time since like in my young adult life, I wasn't seen as the sick kid. I was just seen as, oh, okay, that's like Tyler. He's like yellow belt. Make sure he doesn't get you in an arm bar. But it was cool not being able to have the kidney illness be the first thing people see.
did that give you self-confidence at school to know that you can pretty much defend yourself even if kids are mean?
For sure. Yeah, basically, I didn't really know how to emphasize that. I'm not like a fighter. I'm not like a bully, but
Yeah,
uh,
I didn't use the term that you can kick their butt, but more so like, something happened, you would be able to, adjust.
yeah, it was definitely, it gave me a lot of confidence. Like I was like, okay, like they keep mumbling words. If like a group of them decide to like gang up on me, like I know
Hmm.
how to proper defend myself, and that was a huge thing for my confidence. It was really beautiful.
Absolutely. I mean, I have zero tolerance for bullying. And I think nowadays it is even more harmful because there's social media and it can come from all different sides. Has that kind of given you some thick skin or ways to cope with any challenges that have continued to come up as you develop your music career?
Oh, most definitely. Social media is a very crazy place. Many people actually ask me, because I have two Instagrams. I have like just Tyler Ransom, and I have one for guitar playing.
Hmm.
But initially, I would post guitar videos on my main account, and people would bully me and be like, "Oh, you're not good." So
Oh
then
my goodness.
started another page called Soulful Playing, and I would just post my guitar players there, my guitar playing there, and that was like sort of my alias. I think that's the term. And I was like, I'm not gonna tell anyone about this. Like, this is gonna be my secret. But wow, that was my first time saying that story. But because of like just how crazy bullying is on social media, like I ended up making another page just to avoid the noise. But you definitely get thick skin through it as time progresses. You just have to learn how to roll with the punches. Know who you are, so no one can tell you who you are.
Well, if you could describe yourself, and this is a big question, who are you?
Who am I? Oh man, I'm confused the majority of the time. No, that's terrible. That's terrible.
No, that's a very honest answer. I like that.
Yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind. But if we're really digging in, I think I'm someone who has an idea of what they want to do and achieve. I'm just learning how to proper get there. I'm still establishing who I am. If I could juggle or not by the end of the year, maybe. Just just learning to embrace life and continue to grow. I'm learning. There we go. I like that.
That that's good. But what I've learned over the years is it can be and it doesn't have to be or, right? You can be confused and you're still learning, which is
I
great.
like that. I like that one.
So, you are a jazz guitarist. That's part of who you are, and it is a niche. And so, tell us a little bit more about how you discovered your passion for music.
It is a bit of a niche. It's pretty wild. So basically, in middle school, I had a huge afro. It was crazy, and people down the halls they would call me Jimi Hendrix, and I didn't really know who that was. I went home and I Googled Jimi Hendrix, and the first video was him lighting his guitar on fire on stage. And at the time, I was only playing saxophone in middle school, but seeing him, smash his guitar and just all that energy, I was like, whoa, like he knows who he is. Like this is like authentic. This is like raw. And I was like, whoa, I want to like achieve something like this. I want to express myself in a way that speaks to others where I'm true to myself and they can get something from that. And so I think like I begged my parents for a guitar, and then from there I just I started playing. I started playing nonstop. And like every young man, it was like rock and roll in the beginning, like a lot of Eric Clapton, Led Zeppelin. But then, I was still playing saxophone at the time, so I was listening to a lot of jazz. And then somewhere between that, jazz and guitar like came together, and I found my love for jazz guitar, which is a big niche, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot.
One quote that you said that really stuck out to me. I'm big on quotes. I write them down. So you're like my first quote of the new year in my little passion planner there is, um, don't get me wrong, education is important, but so are dreams. So what did you mean by that when you were saying that in the documentary?
Oh man.
If you even remember. So I'll give you context. It was if someone offered you the ability to, go pro basically, and leave school, would you do it?
I liked the context. Thank you.
I know
Um,
it's probably a while ago since you filmed that. So
a tiny bit, but I'm only here to give you the best answers, Stephanie. The I think one thing I learned going to high school and like my mind being on playing guitar all day, I really appreciated like the tools I was getting from class. Like I really loved my literature classes, but in math class, I just found myself like thinking about, and also like to the kids watching this, like don't like, uh, I don't know, I don't want to be a bad role model,
like do as I say, not as I did, or something like that.
something like that. But I
Yeah.
found myself, thinking about what I'm going to practice tonight on guitar, and it was just my passion. And I think since the moment I picked up guitar, I knew that okay, so like this is what I'm going to do, and I stuck with that. And I think it's just an internal thing, Education is very important, but dreams are like where you get your fulfillment. It's where things come to fruition. It's where you truly find yourself and be happy. Not saying education doesn't do that, but that's my perspective on things. That was a very like zigzag answer, but
Well, I'll summarize it for you and then kind of give you my thoughts too, in that I really think of education as being very important, obviously, but I think there's a number of ways to get your education. And sometimes the degree is really important to do what you would like to do, what you're passionate about. Like, I can't be a clinical psychologist without a PhD. That's just not a thing. And if someone says they're a clinical psychologist without that, there should be that's very sus, as the young kids would say.
yeah.
So I think, what you're really talking about, because in your documentary, I keep referring to it because there's a lot of nuggets in there. Kim Sensei Nim, you're one of your guitar teachers. The interesting part is there at times maybe a language barrier, but you have this common language in playing music. And so how has music helped you communicate with a whole bunch of different people?
One thing I realized in middle school when I was first picking up guitar was that music is universal. Um, I remember this one time my music teacher played John Coltrane on the speakers, and I started to get super teary-eyed. These weren't music is a language, and I feel like there really are no barriers because everyone can understand it to some degree, and it's basically a language that I'm still learning to express myself in, and it's something I feel a lot more comfortable speaking rather than than English. But it's it's crazy just how universal it is and how it connects you. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question either, but that
It
was
did.
that was my mind. Okay, cool.
It did. And what are you hoping to convey in your music?
Um, Basically authenticity. That was one of the main driving points for me when I first picked up guitar. Jimi Hendrix smashing his guitar, maybe some people may think it was for shock value, but I looked at it as like a spiritual thing, just him like finally like being like this is like who I am. And it's something I still want to chase. So, whether that's me writing a crazy lyric that I feel expressing myself or playing like a crazy jazz guitar line, in the end I want people to get something out of that and be like, okay, so this is like who Tyler is. Um, Music has allowed me to stay true to myself throughout all these years, and I just hope that it inspires others to do the same.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that when you begged your parents to get you a guitar, I mean, did you have to promise that you wouldn't smash it or light it on fire?
Yeah, yeah, my mom was very concerned in the beginning, but it worked out. It worked out. No guitars have been smashed yet.
Good.
Or won't be. I don't know if my parents are watching this, but I don't.
Oh, I'm sure that they will. So tell me a little bit more about where you get your inspiration from in terms of writing music. And, I was able to hear some of your songs, fortunately. So tell us more about where you get this inspiration.
Right. So I started writing music basically when I was 14. So after like a set amount of years of just playing guitar, I realized like lyrics are a thing too. And I got this after I was a really like weird kid. I was listening to a lot of Bob Dylan, and that's sort of what was like, whoa, like I can do this with like words. I can like move people with words. So I spent all of high school figuring out how to proper express myself with lyrics. And going to college, I'm very fortunate to be able to go to New York for college. But I just get inspiration from like the smallest things. If that's like a leaf I see on the floor that like looks fancy, or like snowfall. I really like when it rains. When it rains, I'm super like creative. I like the sound of that and how everything with that works. But I sort of just get inspiration from everywhere, which feels like such a broad answer, but it's really just looking at things at how they are, just not overthinking. I feel like a lot of people do that. So, yes.
Well, the pandemic is awful, but has that changed the way that you seek inspiration, considering we have to kind of be more isolated? And obviously, over there, there's Omicron is, or Amarion, however they're going to call it, poor Amarion, but that it's so contagious, especially in New York. You guys had an outbreak. So, I mean, where do you seek inspiration nowadays?
I get it from so basically something that I've learned to do from watching a lot of interviews from artists that I like a lot. I basically listen to who inspired them, and it just becomes like a huge roadmap. So sometimes I'm like, okay, so I'm a big fan of John Mayer. Who did John Mayer listen to get inspired? And then he says like, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Then I listen to all of Stevie Ray Vaughan. Then I'm like, okay, who did Stevie Ray Vaughan listen to? And it basically just keeps growing and growing. And I just sourced all my inspiration from those before me. It's really crazy how that works, but it's like insane. All these different like lines.
You know, Speaking to you, you seem like a older soul in a young person's body. Have you gotten that a lot?
I get that a lot. It doesn't help when I tell people that I do poetry and I crochet in my spare time.
Okay, well, spill the tea because, most people, I would say women, I don't know, what your, orientation is, but many people would find that very attractive. And so are you dating? Do you find inspiration from being in college and being attracted? I know your parents may be watching, but I have to, ask because relationships are an important part of being in your 20s and beyond.
Relationships are a very important part of just growing up. I am not dating, but I get inspiration from my friends who are dating, from love that is in the air. I yeah, right now the guitar is my partner. I get a lot of inspiration from my
That
guitar.
was such a professional BTS answer.
There we go.
They always say, I'm too busy to date. So, thinking a little bit more, though, about college and what this chapter in your life means to you, education is the important piece, but how are you connecting with people and meeting new people as you're going through this journey in the pandemic?
Of course. So I think as we established earlier, social media has played a rather big part in our society, especially during the pandemic. That's sort of like the only way we can connect now. But um, young kids find, and not young kids, young adults. Hey, we make group chats now of people that are in our classes, people that live in our dorm buildings, and we sort of just talk to each other from there. A lot of FaceTime calls, a lot of Kahoot games. Just that's sort of how we stay connected. We keep our social life. We isolate, but we still find a way. It's really
Hmm.
beautiful how that works.
Well, you've had close friends in your life. How have you determined who's ride or die for you? Who you can go to when maybe you have a relapse or are having a difficult time?
Yeah, that was growing up. That was a pretty hard thing to do, especially because in the beginning I'd be like, "Hey guys, like I'm going to the hospital," so like no one contacted me. I mean, I was a kid, so like I only had a flip phone, so I don't think anyone would contact me regardless. But it was sort of like a lot of trial and error. I learned in elementary school. I sort of like told everyone I was going to the hospital just to see who would call me. And then
Mm.
going to middle school, I realized I'm just gonna keep this to myself now. And I kept a very small circle. I'm very fortunate I still have that small circle to this day. But through a lot of um, adversities that I've faced, they've been there for me. I think because they've seen me grow up with it and not talk about it a lot. That's one thing. That's a common thread that I think if you ask any of my close friends like how I deal with it, they say that Tyler, likes to, well, keeping it in the dark is bad, but I don't like actively say it all the time just to like to play that card. But there we go.
Does that take a toll on you though, to keep it close to your chest?
Definitely at times. It's oh man, just the beginning of experiencing all of this was very hard because I didn't really know how to deal with it. I had my parents who were super supportive, but I didn't really have anyone to look up to that was dealing with what I was dealing with. And that's when the foundation Healing Tyler played a big role because as I was rolling with these people and putting it on YouTube, and all these families started reaching out. All these kids were like, "Hey, I have same illness, and like you're doing jujitsu. I want to do sports too. Like, thank you for that." Um, keeping it with my chest is still something I do a lot, but I know that I'm inspiring others, and that sort of just keeps me afloat.
Yeah, tell me more about Healing Tyler.
Yeah, of course. So Healing Tyler is a foundation that my father and I created when I was like 10 or so, because I love jujitsu and my dad wanted to spread awareness for my illness so we could raise money to find a cure. And basically, we'd go to these MMA gyms in Los Angeles, Ronda Rousey's gym, Mark Munoz's gym, all these awesome, incredible fighters. I'd go to their class, I'd roll with them, and then afterwards, I would um I would take out all my medicine and I'd show them each bottle and I'd be like, "Hey, so this is the illness I have." And I was basically spreading awareness. I was letting them know what I take and just um yeah, spreading awareness basically. My dad would film it, then put it on YouTube. And it sort of each time we did it, it kept growing a bit more to the point that okay, we were like, let's make a site with a donation button. Let's have a contact page. And then each time, like throughout the years, like then like going into high school as well, we had like an established circle of families that would reach out and be like, "Hey,
Mm.
my son is like taking this medicine, whereas my daughter is taking this medicine. We see that your son is taking this medicine."
Yeah, I saw the pyramid of medications that you had to go through. And so when they saw that, they must have been like, wow, this is a lot.
It was crazy. To me, it was like, okay, so this is everything I take on a Wednesday. And then seeing like someone who had no idea where I was coming from be like, overwhelmed by it, I was like, well, maybe like I am going through something. And that also played a role into opening my eyes and being like, am I like doing okay mentally? Which is like a crazy thought to have when you're like 11. But
I mean, I really do encourage, even now for the kids that may listen to this, mental health is just so important to understand, even at a very young age.
yeah, I didn't, it was crazy for me, you know. I guess growing up, no one really talked about that. So that was like my first experience with it. Like now, like things are great, but the beginning of that, like it was beginning to take a toll.
Well, you're such an inspiration, and I know that families are going to continue to benefit from this. One of my favorite stories was when your dad went into your hospital room when they're trying to figure things out and like recording everybody. And so I'm glad that it's turned into something positive where now, you can help with the process, because it is really scary as a parent and for yourself to say, I don't really know what's going on. We're trying to figure it out. And, I want to hold people accountable to what they're doing, in terms of testing.
It's a really funny story. Or not funny, but it's definitely a story.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's basically in the beginning like no one knew what was going on, so that was all we had was each other. And that's something I continue to tell everyone around me. All we have is one another. Keep the ones you love close.
Absolutely. So, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. I mean, you are a biracial young man, and there's a lot of sociopolitical context nowadays in America. What has that experience been like for you?
It's been a wild ride for me. Um, like already having a kidney illness and going to school with that was something, but then having to like describe my hair to people. I'm figuring out how to proper word this as well, so like you can see inside my mind. But my hair wasn't necessarily straight like the one part of like the one racial part of me, but my
Yeah,
hair
like
also
mine. Uh-huh.
yeah. And then my hair wasn't also like super rough like the other part of me. So people would be like, whenever they met me, they'd be like, "Oh, like your hair is different. Like, what are you?" And then I'd always be like, "Oh, I was born in Chicago." I didn't really understand what that meant growing up. But then as middle school came and I don't know why race still played a big role growing up, but people would like start just saying it like, "Yeah, this is what I am, X, Y, and Z." And I'd find myself, with the small circle of mixed kids, and we didn't really know where we fit into because it was like two different worlds, and we didn't know if we fit in with this one or this one. Uh, I listened to a lot of Tyler the Creator, and
Hmm.
I think one time he was like too black for the white kids, but too white for the black kids, and that's definitely something that I feel a lot growing up. I had a lot of musicians that were biracial that really helped me figure out who I was, but if it wasn't for them, I'd still be pretty lost. But yeah, growing up mixed was definitely it had a lot of ups and downs, and that also took a lot of strength just within myself to navigate that and to stay strong. I don't know if that answered your question either, but that like
Yeah, it did. I mean, I've heard, excuse me, I've heard that you've gone to the Philippines. What was that like?
it was a huge eye opener. I've never been to a third world country before. I've actually gone there like maybe 3 times, but that was also weird. Initially when I went there, just seeing poverty for the first time as well. It was wild. But then also, I'd stay with family. There was a basketball court in the back. People would be like, "Oh my God, the basketball player," and I'd be like, "No." But then also people would look at me like, "Oh, it's like you're like a dark white man," and I'd be like, "Not really, not like that." But yeah, experiencing that in another country as well was something crazy. But
I mean, have you had various people try to touch your hair and ask you to explain that?
yeah, that's happened a lot. That's happened a lot, like in high school as well. The hair is really the big thing that gave it away. I think like, well, no, because I had a big afro a lot throughout middle school and high school, but there were like definitely different increments of time where I would just buzz my hair just to like avoid any like eyes on me because I didn't really know how to deal with it still. But yeah,
Which is interesting because it's a contrast between kind of paying homage to some of the great musicians and at the same time struggling with your identity.
yeah, that was beautifully said. Yeah,
This is one of my favorite questions as of late is what is a question you wish someone would ask you?
um, I think especially now, with because like my school's online again, other schools are going online. Things are starting to look like how they looked last year. I think an important question that maybe I don't get asked as often, maybe others can relate, is I think just checking up. People being like how are you? Like seriously, because everyone asks like, "Oh, Tyler, what's good? Like, how are you?" But like you can tell if they mean it or if they don't mean it. So I think just a simple "How are you?" But like make sure you have the time of day to actually like hear it out so I can proper say how I'm doing? I feel like that's a good question.
Well, we have time, so how are you really doing?
I'm doing better. I'm doing better than I was. It's a new year. I finished my next album, which is pretty exciting.
Amazing.
Playing some shows in New York, safety, we're gonna be safe, but I've been I was in a bit of a slump last year just because I didn't really know what sound I was going for. And going to music school is such a blessing. It's a beautiful thing. But there's something about being in a room with like 10 other kids that are doing the same thing as you,
And are
where
gifted.
where it's like, maybe I gotta find like a niche or niche thing.
I was like already in a niche, yeah.
Yeah, but that was really just going to music school was a very eye-opening thing for me. I sort of had an identity crisis in the beginning because I was like, oh my goodness, like who am I? Like I know I like Jimi Hendrix. I know like I like to play guitar, but what does any of this mean? I had that for a while, but I'm out of that now, thankfully. And yeah, we're only moving up. Good things.
How did you get out of that or at least combat that? Because I'm sure though that will creep up again. I mean, there are aspects in every field where you have you're identified for your talent and then you go into this upper echelon of people that are super talented. So how do you continue to deal with those thoughts and feelings?
This is actually where I took up crocheting. I still had to play guitar for school, but basically my schedule in the beginning when I first moved to New York was basically I would play guitar for school, then be lunch, then play more guitar for school, and then school would be over, and then I'd be like, okay, let me play some more guitar, and it was just nonstop. So I had to be like, okay, let me like step back from guitar for a bit and just really figure out who the man behind the instrument is. I'm not just a guitar player. Like, who am I? And it was just a lot of self-reflecting, a lot of time away. I feel like other people can use that as well.
So the crocheting, what does it do for you? And are we talking about making scarves and sweaters or we're doing intricate patterns now?
Oh man, no way, Stephanie. Just we're only doing scarves right now.
Was that the Christmas gift or the holiday gift for everyone in the family?
You know it. I made a blue beanie. I'm making a blue beanie for my dad. Yeah, it's taking me some time, but wait, I forgot what the question was again.
What does crocheting do for you?
Crocheting it sort of just became something that I do to get my mind to relax. I'm always thinking about the next thing. I'm like, okay, I have all these things under my belt. I have all these eyes on me now as I continue to release music, to as more people begin to follow Healing Tyler. I'm always like, okay, like I need to keep upping the bar for all. I need to keep delivering just content, content, content.
There's pressure.
It was a lot of pressure, and I'm 20 years old. I can take a step back, some breathing room, and crocheting gave me that breathing room. I'm not saying like I'm gonna be a professional crocheter for the time being.
Nor do I encourage you because I think then it becomes a different level of pressure, right? Like, what are
True.
you gonna produce next? That's where scarves are fine. They're
Scarves are
functional.
cool. I like scarves, but for the time being, it's become an escape for me. A very odd escape that I've never seen, never would have thought I would do, but here we are.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, you're not binging on Netflix 24/7. There's a break. So, um, well, I wonder if there's any positive messages that you'd like to tell your fans, and how can they continue to connect with you?
Yeah, of course. So the one thing that I'm really bad is just, being true to yourself and just to try things, especially it being a new year. I know like, with isolation and everything that may be hard, but you can pick up a hobby at home. Um, just expand your world, whether that be like make a dish that you haven't made before or like learn a brain fact. Learn a fact about the brain. Maybe that'll spark something. But just keep trying new things and just love one another. That was a lot, but it's not or, it's and.
Yes.
But that's what I would say to my fellow supporters watching this, and to my parents who are watching this, and to stay in contact. Watch In the Shed on Vimeo. It's on demand. It's very beautiful. Stephanie likes it. That should mean
I,
something.
it's amazing.
And yeah, on Instagram, Soulful Playing for my guitar videos, and just Tyler Ransom on all streaming services for some music from me. Just tylerransom.com.
Simple.
Yeah, very simple.
Well, I
Yeah.
was gonna say this is an opportunity to tell your parents, and by the way, your sister has been interviewing you since you guys were young, and it's so cute. And she's great at interviewing, by the way. I was like, Mr. Ransom, meaning your dad, like, why do you need me? You have a in-home or at least like a family member who's already a professional. But at any rate, what would you like to say to your family and including your sister
Oh,
for all
oh,
these years? Sorry, go ahead.
no, no, thank you. Um, yeah, there are no words that I think I can say to proper express the gratitude and appreciation I have for each of them. Whether that be my dad staying in the hospital and sleeping like essentially just on like the most uncomfortable chairs just to keep me company, or to my sister who like gave me my medicine in bed when I was too swollen to walk, or
Mm.
like just to my mom for just being there for like an emotional being there for emotional support. I wouldn't be who I am today without them. I'm very grateful for that. I love each and every one of them.
One of the questions that I thought about, I know you're 20, but I mean, in the future, would you want a family? And would there be any worries about having them deal with an illness, or and what kind of a family would you want to build if so?
Oh my goodness. Um,
Spill all the tea. I said that.
no, that was oh my
I
goodness.
can always edit it out. Don't worry.
No, no, we're getting it all. We're getting it all. We're digging deep today. I do not know if I want a family. Kids are mean, and I mean having a family is like something that I have thought of, I guess, like because I have dreams about it sometimes. I have very weird dreams, but it's definitely something I worry about sometimes, if not an illness, but just bullying. Like, because sometimes I think of how my parents raised me, and I wonder if I have the strength to raise, I guess, a mini me in the same way. And just, I don't know, parenting is just a hard thing in general. Like, shout out to all the parents out there. But yeah, I have no idea if I want a family.
I mean, I think that's a very honest answer,
All right, sweet. I'm glad.
and it will change as time goes on, and you'll make decisions based on that, how you feel later on in life. But um, one of the big things that I'd like to talk a little bit more about is, how do you feel or think people can cope with bullying, especially now that it's just so in your face?
Bullying is definitely, super in your face now. Like, I still get messages, like, to this day of people being like, oh, you suck at singing, your guitar playing is terrible. I was called a monkey a lot in the beginning of guitar. No, when I was first putting my stuff out there.
Sure.
But man, the beginning was very tough. And what I would say to cope with bullying is to just know like it's all on a screen. Like they're saying this behind like a mask essentially. If this is in person, it's a different story, which
Oh, they
I'll
wouldn't. Yeah, they
yeah.
probably wouldn't say that to you, and they would have to go to a show in order to say that to you in person. So
Mm.
like Cardi B says, like, thank you for buying my album, or thank you for buying a ticket.
Exactly. Like you still like indulged in the content I create, so that must mean something. Another rule of thumb that I like to think is like if people are upset, maybe to some degree, that means you're doing the right thing because you're angering, the people that want to do what you do. Yeah, bullying is just something that it's still very prominent And I think it takes a lot of courage to understand who you are. And I feel like once you establish that, no amount of words can hurt you.
Yeah, and I think as well, not to over empathize with bullying, because again, zero tolerance, but I think a lot of those children are hurt children, and they come from families or environments that just maybe aren't as nurturing. And so I would say I'm hoping that more schools, educators, and communities can help, them understand how hurtful their actions can be too. So to not end on a depressing note, I do want to continue to, support you in any way possible. And of course, I'm hoping that one day I'll be able to go to one of your shows when, this pandemic is not going to be as contagious. But when is your next show? So we can put this out. When we put this out, we're going to put it out really soon. So when can people buy tickets and attend?
That's to be dated, but I can give you the date for the album if that helps at all.
That would.
March 4th. March 4th is when the next Tyler Ransom album will be out. The same day as Batman.
So you can do both because it's an and, not an or.
I like that.
Well, Tyler, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you, and you're just such a wonderful person. So keep going and don't let haters bring you down.
Thank you, Stephanie. This was a high honor. You asked really nice questions. I like this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Color Success Podcast. Listen, like, subscribe on all major streaming platforms, YouTube, IG, and if you want exclusive content, you can join our Patreon. All links can be found at colorofsuccesspodcast.com.